Explain myself. You said you care for me,
Then she says, what are your favorite 3 investment strategies that you participate in currently and why?
Thanks for the question. So investment strategies, I'm a huge fan of investing in index funds. It's a type of mutual fund that is really low cost. So I do a lot of that. That's one. I have 2 small children and I invest in the 529B for their college and invest in business. So I have my own business and another business. So 3 strategies to invest. Cool. Thank you.
All right, so this question can go for either Lenny or Kimberly. How can one overcome fear or apprehension when looking to follow what they feel their dream is?
Can you repeat that question?
How can one overcome fear or apprehension when looking to follow what they feel their dream is?
It's tough. Shout out to the question. I think that good. That was tough. That was tough. I think when it comes to, we all have fear. At the end of the day, let's be honest. Just because we might seem confident here on stage, I'm pretty sure we have some fear that will fall on our faces. But that's the whole point of being an entrepreneur or doing things on your own. That's why I said sometimes it's not for everybody. For me, I think that if you're really afraid to, or you have this fear, is to not just jump right into the things that you're passionate about, right? And like take your time and go into it slowly and then have something that supplements you to keep you on your feet, right? So I think that it's important to have something that the ground and the foundation to keep you there just in case you fail, if you're that afraid of fear and things like that. And I just lost my thoughts, so I'll give it to Kimberly.
So I second everything he said, but the only thing I would add on is when you're really afraid of something, when we talk about the bad habits that you need to drop, sometimes you have to drop bad people, which is the hard part. So I find myself, when I was really starting my business, I had a hard time because I didn't think anyone else was doing it. I didn't think that anything else was possible. Myleik Teal, so Side Hustle Pro just reposted an interview with Myleik Teal this week, and she talked about how people don't understand the mountain she has to climb. People, when you talk about your mountain, they're thinking about it with their legs. Like, oh, I can't climb that mountain, girl. Like, don't you do that. But remember, these are your legs. So if you know you can do it, you have to jump and really try. And don't let these naysayers really talk about it and get you scared. But better yet, surround yourself with people. I'm a part of multiple communities. So when I get scared, with Diana Smith right here, who was breaking it down, she's someone who I will call. And she's going to tell me, girl, you better do your stuff. Like, what's wrong with you? Why wouldn't you do that? If you don't do it, as a matter of fact, I'm going to call you every morning until you do it. Like, those are the type of friends that you need to support you as you're trying to make. They like that answer.
So what are some tips and tricks for getting sponsors and vendors and investors?
Whoever has experience in that, I can't believe you start with that.
So sponsors, vendors, and what was the last one? And investors. So the hardest part there is making sure you have something that is worth investing in or worth sponsoring. And it's not, like Lenny talked a lot about followers, it's not all about followers. It has nothing to do with that. I've been working with brands since when I had like under 1,000 people on my website. It's about creating a platform, whether it's yourself or your business, that is marketable and aligned with the vision. So like when you come to the Empowerment Social, I don't talk, and I don't have any sponsors here who I don't like, I don't use, and my vision doesn't go around them. Like National Sales Network, people could be wondering, like, why is National Sales Network sponsoring the Empowerment Social? Like, is it all sales professionals? No. National Sales Network has some of the best personal and professional development workshops and trainings out there. It does not matter what field you are in. And sales professionals, the thing that you have to remember is that you don't have to work in sales to know, you have to learn how to sell yourself, which is the hardest thing. And that's what I learned from NSN, even though I work in education and run my own business. So that's why NSN is a sponsor here. So I think creating your personal brand and being clear and being able to explain it. One of the first things I do with my clients is make sure you have your mission so that you're not relying on someone else to interpret what you do or what your brand is. When you're looking for sponsors or vendors, create something great, create a personal brand around it, and make it marketable that aligns with the brand's vision.
That was great. I just want to jump into something I call low level and high level. You should always go into every single event like this and assume that a person has money. A lot of times we walk around, we don't speak to people, we don't talk to people, and just because they might not be the money person, they might know the person that is the money. Right. Literally. Some of my biggest, I always tell people, some of my biggest accounts and biggest partnerships came from like at a restaurant, just talking to anybody and letting them know some of the things that I do and understand what they do and then be able to offer something as well. Right? It's not about just asking all the time, finding something that you can offer. Now the high level thing is this, we're all bosses. Don't be afraid to talk to bosses. I mean, talk to a boss, speak to a boss the same way you want to be talked to, the same way, the same respect. And a lot of times we don't email or talk to the boss, we talk to a lot of gatekeepers. Right? We talk to the people that are the face. Usually the faces, like I told you before, is not on social media. They're not. They're usually hiding behind that particular person. So you need to get around that person to go to the high level. Like only talk to bosses when you need money. Seriously, only talk to bosses on that high level. And on the low level, you really need to talk to everybody because you just never know who knows who. I can't tell you how many times I got partnerships, investments, and things like that based off a conversation at a grocery store or at an event or at a cookout because I'm willing to share my knowledge and also provide things for that person as well.
I'll just add one thing and say that when you start thinking about approaching sponsors or investors, you want to be really confident about who you are and what you do and your expertise. I think too many times we suffer from imposter syndrome. Like when I first started my business, and brands would approach me to write articles, I would say, well, it's just an article, I charge $150. But over time I realized that I built something valuable, and so I'm very comfortable saying I would charge $1,000 to write that article. And so you have to be confident in what you have built because you know what you're doing, you know this business in and out. So make your investors and make your sponsors realize that about you as well.
All right, this one is specifically to you, Lola. What advice can you give a recently divorced mom of 3 who has decided to work as an independent contractor, more so on her investment and saving options?
Okay, so recently divorced, mom of 3.
Decided to work as an independent contractor, so investment and saving options.
So I think the first most important thing, given the fact that you're now the sole breadwinner of your family, which is very common with women, is that you need to establish some sort of backup plan because you have children and you have dependents. So the investing aside, immediately once you start getting that first paycheck, I would build something into my budget to apply to emergencies for my children in the event that I do lose this job, God forbid, let's say that happens, that I can cover my rent, I can cover our basic expenses, I can cover food for my kids for the next 3 to 6 months. That's really, really important. That should be the priority. The next thing you want to do is get a plan in place to start investing for your retirement because again, it is just you, there's no one, there's no spouse. So even if you're contributing 1% or 2% of your salary, do that. And it's important to prioritize yourself in that regard over your children. That sounds a little crazy. However, your kids have the opportunity of time and you don't. They have more time to save when they get to 18. And so you want to establish a plan for yourself first. And then you can start to educate your children about things they should do about financial independence, financial security. And once your plans are in place, then start thinking about ways you can invest for your children.
All right, Letty, you ready? Since you recently received a Master's in Education and a BS in Finance, or if this person has, they recently received a Master's in Education and a BS in Finance, what is the best way to get an instructor job at a college or a university?
So there's the traditional way of just applying. Most people would tell you to apply to a community college first. Community colleges usually look for professors without a doctorate degree. But it goes to what I said earlier about being a boss. So you're gonna have to be a little different. So don't be afraid to reach out to the deans of different departments within that school. So let's say you wanna teach in finance. Don't be afraid to reach out to the dean of business at that community college, send them an email and ask, can I have a meeting with you in person? Now when you ask for that meeting in person, it's not about the teaching position, it's about you offering to maybe do a workshop or help out the students so they can get used to you and build a relationship. I think in addition to that, you also want to make sure, there's something else I want to kind of talk about a little bit, it's called teaching philosophy. You can Google that. You start to realize, what would your teaching style be if you're able to articulate that in a one-page, like pretty much an essay, on top of your CV. Not a resume, a CV. We can talk about that, whoever it is, and come see me. A cover letter, that can also help the situation as well.
All right, Kimberly, I have two questions that are kind of related, so you can answer them together or separately if you want to. So, how do you overcome procrastination when building your personal brand? And consistency is key. What are 3 actions or practices that one can take on or give up to strengthen that muscle? Okay, so procrastination, I think you can't be consistent if you're procrastinating. So I think there's basic things like when I procrastinate, I always resent it every single time. When I procrastinate, the pain of remembering how bad it was when I was up with tears in my eyes doing something because it had to get done, that always reminds me. But the other part, I think more practical, if you're looking to beat it, I think is really creating a plan. So I'm not going to do like a quick pitch, but I have a planner over there, the Stop Dreaming, Start Planning method. But you can do it on your own. You don't need to buy my workbook. You can do it on your own. Really outline what you need to do step by step every single day. So I'm a little bit of a nut when it comes to planning. So I plan out every single quarter, and I use something called Asana. So I have my revenue generating goals, my visibility goals, and I have my personal goals. And then I break down what tasks I'm doing every month, and then I break down what tasks I'm doing every single week. I think that not only does that allow me to be consistent, but some of the procrastination, I feel like it's really an excuse because you're nervous or you don't know what to do and you're overwhelmed. You procrastinate because you're going through all these different tasks, all these ideas in your head, and you can't put pen to paper and do something. But when you plan accordingly and you plan ahead, that allows you to be consistent. It allows you to beat procrastination because you just look at what you have to do, and then it's just the self-discipline to get it done. All right, we got another money question. What is the best way to work on your 401k if you don't plan on staying at your job for a long time?
So this is a pretty common question. Investing in your 401k has nothing to do with whether you stay at your job or not. If you qualify, you should be investing. You should be putting money into it because, again, time is your friend. You have the opportunity to invest, and over the long term, your investments can grow exponentially for you, right? Compared to having your money in a savings account that's earning you up 1% a year, when inflation is almost 3%, you're actually losing money when you have money in a savings account. So if you qualify for the 401k, you should be investing in it to the point that you can. The goal to be able to max out. If you do leave that employer, you roll over your money. I don't recommend when you leave an employer that you roll over the 401k into your new employer's 401k. And the reason why I say that is because when you invest in a 401k, there are certain limitations. You can only invest in what your employer has negotiated with the brokerage firm. You don't have access to the entire stock market, and many times the fees can be a lot higher. And so I recommend that if you are leaving a job or you're planning to leave a job, you roll your 401k into a brokerage, a Fidelity, a Vanguard. I'm a huge fan of Vanguard. There are robo-advisors like Betterment that invest in Vanguard, so that's my recommendation.
All right. What is one piece of best advice that you'd give to someone?
Okay, I'll go first. And I would say that you have to know your why. You have to want whatever it is you want to achieve bad enough. A lot of times people focus on the goal, like I said in my talk, because other people are doing it, or because other people have it, or because this is what your family says you're supposed to do. You have to focus on why you want this. And if you don't want it bad enough, you're not going to be compelled to do the work to get it. And in anything, in building a business, in improving your finances, and being the superstar of your career, you have to work. There's no two ways about it. It seems really glamorous on Instagram, and when you see other people telling you their amazing overnight success stories, but it's a lot of hard work. And you have to want it bad enough. Otherwise, you're just going to find yourself every year delaying, your goals. Every year saying, "Oh, I'm going to do this next year, next year, next year." You never do it, and you kind of stay mediocre. And you don't want that.
I think what's most important is understanding your target market. just in general. Not just talking about business, I'm talking about in your life as well. So a lot of us, you know, we get excited about an idea and get upset when some of our family or friends don't enjoy the idea or support the idea, but maybe your family or friends are not the customers. But you also want your family and friends to support you outside of the business, you know, the personal side. Just check on me. You don't have to purchase everything you're doing. You know, it might not be your target market, and sometimes we get that confused, saying like, why didn't they come to my event or why didn't they show up? Some people just is not what they need to know, or not the knowledge they need to have. And I think in addition to target market, I'm talking about for your relationships as well. You know, I always talk about my fiance and I, like we work hand in hand. You know, she's a singer, she has a business. When she's singing and if the sound goes out, guess what? I'm on my knees fixing the sound, you know what I mean? Or I'm the security guard, or I'm the manager, and vice versa. You know, she comes to my event, she comes out, or you understand how creative a person is, you let them be creative. So you gotta be careful of the people that are around you because they'll minimize